Okay, we're live.
We are live.
We are live. We are live. We are on the air. It is
Monday.
Monday. I was going to say Sunday. Monday, February the 25th, 2019. And we are doing this today because obviously the Oscars were last night, and we're doing it an hour later because Tony had some stuff he had to wrap up on his end. So I know it's very late for our overseas viewers, but if you're tuning in, of course, we always appreciate you tuning in nonetheless. And yeah, on this episode 13 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, we're just doing Q&A for the entire time, questions and answers. Tony, how the hell are you, you son of a bitch?
I'm doing good, man. Well, it was another case of the Mondays today, but we got through it, and I'm ready to talk some bullshit tonight.
Good. And by the way, I love your t-shirt.
Oh, yes, repping the Halloween 4 tonight.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That's great shit. Now, before we get into the questions into the chat room, I just uploaded a video just a couple of hours ago. Maybe some of you have already seen it, where it was my second unboxing video, where I unboxed a indie Michael Myers 2018 Halloween 2018 mask that was sent to me from a big supporter of the channel, a big supporter of the show, a big supporter in general, because he's a patron as well, Chris Baber, who sent me this independent Halloween Michael Myers mask, which I unboxed earlier today. But for those of you who haven't seen it, here it is. This sucker is absolutely spectacular. The detail in this thing is unbelievable. And the video doesn't do it justice. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but really, it doesn't do it justice. Sincerely. This thing is great. And if you want to watch that unboxing video, you can. It's the last video that I uploaded earlier today. So yeah, it's just great. Unbelievable.
Great,
awesome stuff.
Great craftsmanship too on
Oh yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal craftsmanship on that.
Yep. For sure. And that's going to go back there eventually at some point. So yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. So where did you get your shirt?
Oh, did I get it? No, I didn't get it from Halloween merchandise, whatever the Halloween store that you go to via the Halloween movies website.com. It might have been that. They might have had a little run going with those t-shirts last year. It wasn't Fright. No, it might have been Fright Rags. It might have been Fright Rags is where I got it from. Damn, now you put me on the spot. Shit. Come on, man.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. All right. I'll tell you what. We'll go to the chat room.
I just did a 16-hour photo shoot today. I was stuck in traffic for like another 3 hours tonight. And I'm like, all right, Halloween or t-shirt. Where did I get this t-shirt?
I know what that's like. So let's
No, it wasn't Fright Rags because it's not up on Fright Rags' site. I think it was okay. So like, you know how
was it Terror Threads?
No, you know, because I either get it Fright Rags or I'll get it from if you go to HalloweenMovies.com, they have a store via the website. I'm almost 100% positive that that's where I got this one of Danielle Harris in the clown costume doing the stabbing.
Gotcha.
So those are the only two places I've ever purchased, except for that one, the Halloween sweatshirt, Haddonfield 1978. That was a custom made one that I got at the mall. I think I showed that one to you.
Gotcha. Cool. So. Okay. Hey, let's go over to the chat room here. Let's get the two super chats out of the way first. Just
anything you want.
That's right. Anything you want. So Jay the Movie Maker super chat. Thank you, Jay. Says, "What's up, Dave? Been watching your fan films and it's really inspiring me. Thanks." Hey, you're more than welcome. I'm glad it is. The other super chat is iPimp Troll says, "What other YouTubers do you watch and like?"
Good question.
Well, I mean, you know, I can't say, like, I certainly support those in our circle, like your Cody Leach and your Lee McCoy and, you know, the guys at you know, over at Wham and Sorry?
I said we, we like the women's channel, and I meant to say Wham.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will catch their videos from time to time to see what they're doing, and but I can't say there's anybody specific that I watch consistently on a regular basis. I find that most of the time, if I'm not doing a video, I'm doing, of course, my work, and I'm talking to producers and doing voiceovers and things like that. Of course, when I do have time to sit and watch some videos. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place. There isn't somebody specific that I always tune into necessarily. What about you?
You know, in the beginning, you know, for just to kind of almost like I felt like I was picking his brains at time for editing style. I would watch obviously Casey Neistat, which everybody, you know, either you like him or you don't. I didn't really care so much about the brand content that he was pushing out. I feel sometimes he's a little bit too fake, but I love his editing style. Absolutely phenomenal video editor. So it was cool to kind of watch him. And even PewDiePie, I would watch some of PewDiePie's videos just to pick up some different ideas, you know, for my own editing critique. But like you, I watch you all the time. I do watch Cody Leach all the time as well too, and I catch the guys over at Wham. You know, it's like kind of like I have to play catch up sometimes with them because, like, you know, like yourself, you get busy with work and stuff, and it's like I can't really devote that much time to watching YouTube. Then you start falling behind really quickly. Next thing you know, I watch like 50 freaking videos. But believe it or not, most of the content that I watch on YouTube, I watch like documentaries on just like I'm in a serial killer documentary mood this past month, so I've been watching all different types of serial killer like Zodiac and Ted Bundy, obviously, because the Netflix thing did. So the next thing you know, I started doing after watching the Netflix series, I went on YouTube and was just watching everything Ted Bundy related. So that's primarily what I will watch on YouTube. I watch a lot of NASA and space bullshit stuff. So it's not like you. I don't have like one specific other than like you and Cody and Lee and the guys at Wham and some of the, like I said, a couple of the popular ones. But I don't really. I'm not a follower. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like I hate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It makes it sound like I'm too good, but it's not the case. It's like I don't get, unless like, you know, connecting with you, it's totally different. But like if you're into some of the bigger guys like PewDiePie, Casey, and all, then that's cool. Like I'm not a big follower.
Well, I think people have to understand that you know, there's a big difference between watching, you know, and consuming.
Right.
And I, you know, I mean, it takes a lot of work to do this, you know, this kind of thing, a lot of organizing, a lot of editing, a lot of shooting, a lot of mixing and mastering and you know, and it's a lot of work. And then of course I also have, you know, the voiceover work I'm, you know, doing. So it gets, it's not that I don't watch anybody, but to actually, yeah, to be,
like a diehard follower. No, I don't do that.
Right. No, I don't. It's not personal. It's just, you know, it's kind of like the equivalent of sort of, you know, you make a movie and it's like, do you ever watch your own shit? Like, nah, not really. You know, like, you know, I think, who was that? I think De Niro was asked that one time, you know, do you ever watch your own stuff? You know, it's like, cool, right? It's like, well, no, it's not cool. It's a job. I go and I do it and then I'm done. And then if I happen to catch it on TV, okay. But you know, so yeah, no, it's interesting.
Even like our shows, I'll go back and only watch like the first couple minutes just to, you know, if I have to maybe adjust some camera settings on my end, the audio,
right.
And that's it. Just a quick kind of like, all right. Cause like you, I never watched when I used to make videos. I just upload it and that's it. It's there. I'll never go back and watch it.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's see if we can get a couple here. I know there's a super chat. Let's see if we can get some that are not super chats. Let's see here. David King says, Dave, do you think without the brother-sister plot to ruin it, would you consider part 2 as good, if not better than the original? No, because I think stylistically, it's still sort of, you can remove the brother-sister story arc, the twist that sort of happens there in the third act of Halloween 2, 1981, which is what David is referring to. And the execution is still the same. They had to compete with a lot of the sort of slasher movies that were up and coming at that time, Friday the 13th, and of course Friday the 13th Part 2, and of course all the other little ones. And they had to instill a little more gore. They had to be a little more sort of in your face. Now, Halloween 2, 1981 pales in comparison to what a slasher is today. It's tame as can be. But at that time, and in comparison to the 78 original, it was like, whoa, we've really stepped it up a notch here, you know? So I think if you remove that twist, you're still left with a movie that is relatively execution wise still sort of not as good as the original. But at the same time, it's understandable. That's why, again, the first film works best as a one-off, because naturally, if you do a sequel, you do have to open things up a little bit, or you are just doing the same movie over again. And some people really like that, but others see that as sort of the drawback of the overall point of the characters. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, Tony, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, actually, it's funny because we actually got a question here from the Film Addict on thoughts on Rami winning Best Actor last night for Bohemian Rhapsody. And honestly, I didn't know. I asked Dave because I'm not a big fan of award shows. My mentality is this. Look, my job as a photographer, I go and do a job and that's it. I don't need an award to validate what I do for a living. I've been invited to WPPI, which is the photography awards. And, you know, like it'd be like the Oscars for us, or like whatever Dave goes to for film, you know, voiceovers. It's the same thing. I've been invited to that shit so many times that I turned it down every year, to the point where they stopped inviting me because I don't go. I don't really care for the awards, but
Right.
Because Queen is like my top 3rd favorite band of all time.
Right.
Curious. I did hear Queen opened up the Oscars. I've still yet to watch that performance. I think they opened up with some dude. I don't know the dude's name, but Dave did tell me that he won Best Actor. And my thoughts are, because I am so deep into Queen, and I know, you know, where the band came from, the story of them, the story of Freddie Mercury. The movie took a lot of liberties, and I understand it. They got to create tension. You got to create drama. But I can tell you this right now, this is not even going to spoil anything. Everything leading up to what happened in Live Aid was total fucking bullshit. That shit that was happening to Freddie pre-Live Aid didn't happen until some of it happened, but finding out didn't really happen until after the fact. And that was just kind of one of those like, ooh, you're taking way too much liberty here. Like, I didn't like that. And there are some other elements. Now, as far as Rami Malek's performance, oh, fuck, yeah. I mean, he was fucking Freddie Mercury right down to the fucking T. Great job. Tremendous performance. Very happy to hear from Dave that he won the Oscars. So totally fist pump on that.
I just want to touch on this. Brandon Gregory says, Dave comparing himself to De Niro has officially made my night. I didn't compare myself to De Niro. Holy shit, people. Nuance, people. Nuance. I'm using De Niro as an example. I'm not saying I'm like De Niro. I'm using De Niro's example to make a point, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm like Robert De Niro. I didn't say that at all. Jesus Christ, man. And people wonder why I say at the end of the day, generally speaking, because if I don't, people are like, Dave said. It's like, no, I didn't say that.
What do you think about Remy winning Best Actor?
Oh, I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Look, Bohemian Rhapsody, yes. I mean, there were a lot of liberties taken. Most of what you see it's not yet the. Sorry.
Most of what you see, it is accurate, but it's when.
Well, this is what the problem is, right? And in order to tell a compelling story in 2 hours in a major motion picture, they had to sort of. It's not that what you were seeing was necessarily a lie, but it was the order for which it happened. They had to say, well, you know, okay, well, this actually happened in '87. But in order for that, you know, why don't we do this? And, you know, we have to, because we, let's, push it back, and we'll, this, and we'll do that. And if you're a diehard Queen fan who knows everything there is know about Queen, yeah, I could see that might rub you the wrong way, because you're very objectively aware that, well, no, that didn't happen in '85. That happened in '87. He didn't come out till '87. It was '87 we found out that he had AIDS, and but I forgave it because I understood what they were doing. And I can imagine that the emotion he felt in the movie was still relative to the emotion he felt 2 years later when he actually did find out. Although I certainly can understand how it can rub some people the wrong way.
Well, and also they made it such a big deal that the Live Aid performance, that Queen had taken this long break. In reality, they'd only taken a 2-month break from their previous tour.
Right. Yes.
Long period between, and that was. It's not so much the AIDS part, even though that kind of was like I get why they did it, and I agree with you from the storytelling. totally makes sense. But when they're portraying it as like, well, Queen, you know, everyone's forgotten about Queen. Queen, you know, hasn't been around for a long time. No one's going to care. No, what Queen was really concerned with Live Aid, it wasn't so much that, you know, they'd been, you know, out of the scene for a while. They'd only been out of the scene for 2 months because they just finished a tour. They were just concerned that it wasn't their audience. They just felt, you know, are we going to, you know, is this like the right audience for us? And then obviously the performance, you know, speaks for itself. So it was like that part of it. I didn't like. I felt like, oh, well, come on, guys. You just finished a world tour 2 months prior to Live Aid. You didn't have this long fucking break. So that was the part of the liberty of the storytelling that I didn't like. But I agree with what you're saying.
Well, and this is one thing people have to understand about. I understand your reservations with award shows, and this is what people have to understand is that award shows is I think they're important. I think it's important. Certainly, there is a big marketing thing around them, and what the general public sees and the illusion that is created is not necessarily the reality of what's going on. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of lobbying. There's a lot of self-congratulating. Sure. And the Voice Arts Awards is no different. And it doesn't mean that they're not important, but I'm somebody that you know, when I go to the Voice Arts Awards, there I am in Hollywood on the red carpet with the likes of Rosario Dawson and Sigourney Weaver and my fellow, you know, voice acting peers. And there's a very certain specific type of game you have to play. And when you're there, you got to be on. And you got to be smiling all the time, and because you don't know who's taking your photograph and when, and you have to be, you know, schmoozing all the time. I don't like schmoozing really because it doesn't.
I'm the same way. I'm like, yeah,
well, it doesn't. Yeah, well, it's not authentic. It doesn't. It's a game, right? It's a game. All Hollywood, whether it's voice acting, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's acting, whether it's music, whether it's photography, whatever it is, it's a game. And if you want to play the game, and if you want to get ahead, it's not black and white. Again, nuance, people. You know, it's not. You know, there are many shades of gray, but at the end of the day, much of how far you go or the connections you make is how well you play the game. So. I totally get it. I mean, the Voice Arts Awards are not as big as the Oscars. Obviously, that's the biggest show in town. But even at the Voice Arts Awards, which was at Warner Brothers, you know, walking the red carpet and seeing everybody, and there's that energy, there's that vibe of oh hello, yes hello, yes hello, you know, and it's so like all right, you know, and you got to play it, you know, you have to play it, and you know, yeah, and I it's an interesting experience. Let's put it that way.
Hey, you had a bunch of super chats here. Let's get through those. I don't want to those guys.
Okay, let's get through them pretty quick here. So Joe Smajan Jr. Evening, guys. Thanks for cleaning up the echo. And what are your thoughts on Top Gun 2?
Can't fucking wait. Can't wait. I mean, you're talking 80s movies now. Top Gun. If I were to, well, maybe one night me and Dave did we do a favorite 80s movies? Did we do one of those? Maybe me and Dave should do one of those, like specifically the 80s one.
Maybe we should. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Top Gun was definitely one of my favorite 80s movies. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And with the content Tom Cruise has been cranking out here with Mission Impossible, was it Live, Die, Repeat that he did, I think, or The Edge of Tomorrow, whatever it is. I think the movie like changed the name of it. Cruise has been cranking out some really good content. So I feel that this Top Gun is going to be, it's not going to be a hammy sequel. I think it's going to be a really good sequel. So I'm looking forward to it. What about you?
Yeah, I haven't thought much about it. I haven't seen Top Gun in over 20 years. So
I feel the need for speed.
I mean, sure, we're in the nostalgia era, as I say. Sure, why not? Why the fuck not? Okay, let's see here. Chris Baber, Tony's package in 6 days. Hey, that might sound a little weird to people, but that's because Tony is also getting a Michael Myers mask. Not the same one, not this one here, in case those of you that are late to the party. I just got this today. This is an independent Halloween 2018 mask that big supporter of the channel, Chris Baber, sent me. Chris, again, thank you so much. Tony is getting a mask as well. His is in the mail.
Chris, you better follow me on Instagram, buddy, because I've got a lot of big plans with that mask. Lots of big plans for some really cool photos.
iPimp Trolls says, will the two of you guys come together and make a short film on YouTube? Sure. Yes. It's definitely something that we want to do in the future, hands down.
Yeah, I said that to Dave on several occasions. That I've told Dave many times. You gotta, when you collaborate with people on projects, you gotta come to the table knowing everyone's strengths and weaknesses. I've always said to Dave, Dave should take the reins and articulate the story, almost like the director role. He's the John Carpenter and I'm his Dean Cundy. And you're suggesting to Dave, okay, this is what I think for the shot, the framing, maybe we do a drone shot, maybe we do, this or whatever and whatnot, and then just kind of play off of each other that way. But I've said that to him many times. I will never do my own short film. I would piggyback off and do something for Dave on Dave's channel and collaborate and do like a Halloween short on his channel. Then that's definitely going to happen.
That's going to happen at some point, folks. Let's see. Megatron Trap says, do you prefer DreamWorks animation or Pixar? Well, I think Pixar is the gold standard. So, and we're inundated with more, I think, Pixar animation than we are DreamWorks. But I mean, it all comes down to story and lovable characters as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. We got one here from Stacking Troopers too. I don't want to miss him.
Mm-hmm.
Mike and Dave and Tony. I think I meant to say Dave and
Mike and Tony. Well, I'm Mike. I'm Mike now.
Yeah, you're Mike. What's going on, fellas? Nice Michael Myers mask. Dave, yes. Dave, what's your top 3 scariest scenes? I'm guessing from Halloween of all time, or in horror. Should we go with Halloween or horror in general?
My top 3 scariest scenes.
Let's do horror in general, because I already got.
Dave, what are you top 3 scare? Oh, okay. Yes, top 3 scariest scenes of all time. I'm gonna say the opening to Jaws is got to be up there.
Another one, bastard.
So, oh yeah, I'm gonna say that opening to Jaws is unbelievable, and the piercing screams of the woman in the water, and just that shot. It's one of the most iconic shots in the history of cinema, where the camera is underneath the woman and she's treading water and you just see her legs and you hear, bum, 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 and it's, I get goosebumps when I fucking think about it. Sorry, Tony?
So well, beautifully shot and scored, obviously. The combination of Spielberg and Williams, man, that's money.
Yes. Yeah. Unbelievable. I would say another one would have to be when Michael Myers sits up behind Laurie Strode at the end of Halloween, and turns his head. I can only imagine in 1978 watching that movie for the first time. Again, even though it's my favorite horror movie of all time, you can't argue that it's dated. I mean, it's a 70s movie. There's a lot of things in there that are a little cheesy now. I don't mean necessarily the execution and more the acting from the ladies, but certainly, when you put things in perspective and you imagine being yourself in a movie theater in 1978 and watching that movie for the first time and seeing that moment, I mean, it'd just be awesome. And then, of course, the third one, geez, there's so many. I mean, off the top of my head we talked about this, I think, but again, take these with a grain of salt. They're likely to change depending on how I feel, but off the top of my head right now, I would probably say Tina's death in the first Elm Street.
My 3 would be, it's really hard to narrow down. The Exorcist to me is always going to be my top favorite scary movie of all time. Narrow down one specific scene from The Exorcist. It could be the moment when Linda Blair, she's whipping back and forth on the bed, and then she goes back on the bed, and her eyes begin to roll white. Or the spider crawl scene. I always found that.
Oh yes.
When they added that in the director's cut a bit later on in the early 2000s, I thought that was kind of creepy. So I mean, with The Exorcist, you can almost go any scene. The following one, I would say after that. If anyone has ever seen A Clockwork Orange, it's not necessarily scary, but it's very disturbing. It's the scene when the guys go into the couple's house and they beat the dude up and end up. You don't see the rape scene, but it's very much alluded to that he rapes the wife and whatnot.
Right.
It's a very disturbing scene, but also very well acted by Malcolm McDowell and, the rest of the cast in there. Kubrick, obviously, great job at executing just that whole sequence. You could even argue and say either that scene in Clockwork Orange or even the scene when Malcolm McDowell goes to the woman's house and he's alone.
Right.
it sets up by his that transit
Right.
that
Yeah.
sequence between him and that woman is very disturbing. Dave took two of mine already. I was going to say Jaws, the opening scene from Jaws, and I was also going to say Nightmare. So I'm just for shits and giggles, I'll just say the ending scene with Daniel Harris at the end of Halloween 4 with the knife. Not really scary, but it's also a great twist.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think those are two great additions.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I want to get a couple. I see the super chats. I want to get a couple that aren't super chats. Let's see. Pink Rick Film says, "Hey guys, what would be your thoughts on a Monster Squad remake, but instead of the classic 50s Universal monsters, it's with the classic 80s slashers, Freddy, Jason, etc." Ooh, the rights to that. Man, that would cost a pretty penny. In theory, I think. See, I'm not a fan, as you guys know, I'm not a fan of crossover movies.
Yeah.
Because crossover movies, in order for, there's something about having Jason and Freddy, and I wasn't a big fan of the 2003 film. There's something about Jason and Freddy being in a movie that is quite satirical because they would never exist in their own, or sorry, they would never exist in each other's universes on their own anyway. So in order for you to bring them together, you kind of have to wink to the audience a lot with them fighting each other. But there's something about that idea that almost works better. It almost is like, I don't know what it is. There's almost something about that idea that sits with me okay. A little better than Freddy fighting Jason, Michael fighting Freddy. That shit would never happen. Maybe because they're not necessarily fighting each other. And maybe it's almost like the Monster Squad, they're not real. It's almost like it's a, I don't know. I got to think about that a bit more, but that's intriguing. I don't think they'd ever do it because I think it would cost too much money to get the rights to do it, but because you'd have to have everybody all in there. And, but that's interesting. I don't know, Tony, what do you think?
I agree. I got nothing.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, let's see here.
For chats, I just want to make sure you don't miss anyone.
No, let's see here. Let me throw down. Let's see here. Dantastic says, how would you reboot Friday the 13th? Would you bring back Mom? Well, Dantastic, Tony and I have a Two Dudes and Some Bullshit Friday the 13th episode, which is, I think, our second episode, maybe, or third episode. Go back. Yeah, go back into the shows and watch that episode, and you'll it's like it's great stuff. I think it's got about 4,000 or 5,000 views right now. So go check that out, and you'll the whole episode is about how Tony and I would reboot Friday the 13th. Let's see here. The Stacking Stormtrooper says, "Wait a minute, I'm not watching Robert De Niro." Fuck, I know, it's unbelievable.
Hey, Dr. Booze quickly asked me, as a Kubrick fan, do I like Eyes Wide Shut? Yes, not my favorite Kubrick films, but yeah, I mean, I worship the altar of anything Stanley Kubrick, and yeah, I do. I anything that man has done. I mean, you see, I got my Stanley Kubrick books back there. I mean, yeah. It's not my top favorite, but it's a good movie. Did you like Eyes Wide Shut, Dave?
Yeah, I didn't mind it. It's not my favorite Kubrick either. My favorite of his is 2001, followed by The Shining. Yeah. And then probably A Clockwork Orange. But I certainly liked Eyes Wide Shut. I think I like the soundtrack a lot too.
I'm thinking, Dave, we need to do a Kubrick night on the channel. What do you think?
We might have to do a Kubrick night. Might have to do a Kubrick night. Yep, we might have to do that. Let's see here. The Stacking Stormtrooper. Oh no, I already read that. Jay the Movie Maker says, favorite Halloween sequel. If it's H2, what's next? My favorite Halloween sequel is Halloween 2, 1981. Followed after that, probably. Well, it depends. I mean, as much as I was disappointed with the 2018 film, depending on how I feel on the day, might be the 2018 film. Yeah. But the probability probably would fall more with Halloween 4. And I don't think Halloween 4 is a spectacular movie by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a lot of potential there if certain things were done differently. I would say that it's never going to be 5. It's never going to be 6. It's never going to be 7 or 8 or Rob Zombie's films.
Halloween 4. I've said that pretty much from
yeah.
That'll never
exactly. Yeah,
so,
exactly. 100%. Let's see. K316 says, "Hi Dave, what's your favorite scene in Halloween 2018?" My favorite scene in Halloween 2018. Oh, I know this. Would probably be my favorite scene in Halloween 2018. My favorite scene, not shot, scene. Would probably be.
Oh, I got mine. Okay.
You go ahead.
The Panaglide shot there at the beginning when he's going after the throwback, the callback to the chick from Halloween 2, the woman in the curls and the bathrobe. Halloween 2, though. Mrs. Elrod. Yeah, I would say that nice steady cam. That was a nice callback, a nice little wink and nod to obviously the original film. It was very fluid, had a nice rhythm. There was a nice steady beat to that shot. I do remember, and I did like that.
There was the only thing and of course that's the shot our friend and supporter of the channel, Marion Singh, is in.
Yep.
And Marion Singh, for those who don't know, is the one that gets
the
guide through. That's right. Maybe Marion's in the chat. Who knows? Listen, I like the scene. Yeah. The problem for me is that there's just not a lot, and this has nothing to do with just I got to be. There's just not a lot of suspense. There's not a lot of. It's a cool
baby there, and you're like, all right, is he gonna kill the baby?
Well,
okay, that's.
I'm talking about overall.
I
think it's
yeah,
right. It's a really well done shot. And it looks good. And to do that, it takes a lot of practice. I think they shot it like 11 times, Marion was saying. So, but there's not a lot of suspense. And I think if they had lit it a bit differently, I think maybe if they had, well, it's just a whole other thing. Anyway, that wasn't the question. The question is, what's my favorite? Favorite scene. I quite enjoyed the bus crash scene because I think it's one of the few scenes in the movie where I felt one of the few, there's a couple, one of the few scenes in the movie where I actually felt genuine, a little bit, not a lot, but somewhat genuine suspense. When the boy gets out, when the dad gets out, we don't know where the dad goes. The boy gets out with a shotgun. He's looking around. There's no music. It's just, you hear, the elements, and there's that cop in the ditch that says, "Run," and it's like, what the fuck? Like it was one of the more suspenseful scenes in the movie. And it was moody, of course, a lot of fog through the headlights. And I enjoyed that. So I'll say that for now. But I think there's another scene I'm forgetting. There's gotta be. Okay, let's see here. Slaughter Cinema says, Dave, thoughts on the original AC/DC members reuniting and kicking Axl Rose to the curb. Thank God. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I mean, if Brian Johnson, I don't know if Brian Johnson will be able to sing live anymore, but certainly if he's good enough to go, and I suspect, not that he didn't have a hearing problem, and that wasn't part of the reason why he sort of had to a little bit. I suspect there was something else going on too. I don't totally buy that it was just hearing, and Brian Johnson's too classy. Angus Young is too classy. They've been in this game far too long to be like, well, we got today. If it was a band today, you'd know about the drama,
right?
AC/DC been doing this since the early 70s.
Yeah,
I think it's probably just, I think there was something else, and maybe they've sort of made up, and that's why Brian Johnson is supposedly back. I know that there's been rumors. They've seen them in recording and things like that, but we'll wait and see. I'll believe it when I know that there's a new album coming out with his voice on it. So I don't know.
I don't talk about AC/DC enough. I do have them in my vinyl collection. I have a couple albums by them.
Yeah.
I love their music. I know I talk about Motley Crue and Nirvana and Queen a lot, but no, AC/DC is a great. And yeah, if like you said, I don't, can he do live or?
Well, he was, look, I mean, Brian Johnson is I mean, he's incredible voice for what he did, a certain side. I noticed that watching some of the people that would see him live, he's 68, 69, whatever it is.
Well,
when
they're not easy to sing.
No, and when you're trying to bust out those notes, trying to hit those same notes in Thunderstruck
and shit, yeah,
he does sound. There were moments when I would catch some YouTube videos of fans just recording it on their phones and stuff, where I'm like, yeah, he sounds a little off. Sounds like he needs some auto tune.
Yep.
You know, just certain moments. So whether or not now your hearing, when you have bad hearing, that can affect that. So maybe that was part of it. Maybe he really did have some bad hearing, but I suspect that there was more to it. But I think he would be good enough to sing in a studio, because if he's off by a couple of, you know, you can just auto tune that shit, right? I mean, you know, it's not really a big deal. It's more the live stuff that you have to worry about. So, let's see here.
Yeah, that's right, David Johnson, Motley Crue, The Dirt, out on Netflix. I'm a little hesitant. I saw the trailer drop on that this week, and I don't know, man. It looks low budget, you know. Like
Yeah,
I've read The Dirt. It's a great novel. I've also read Nikki Sixx's Heroin Diaries. I actually thought that they should have maybe focused in on that a little bit more than so much of Motley Crue. I mean, I'm true to the Crue. I love the Crue. They are that is God to me, you know.
right.
But I don't. Did you see the Dirt trailer?
I haven't yet. No, I haven't.
Yes, I'm curious to hear what you think, because it just looks like, I don't know. Like when I watched it, maybe they're hiding it, which is great. But when I watch it, and when you read the book, and you not even just the book, you listen to any band who was around back in the '80s, and they talk about the Sunset Strip and whatnot, and what it was like then. What's being portrayed right now by Netflix in the trailer looks too polished and too clean. It doesn't look like anything like I would expect the 1980s Sunset Strip would look like. Now, they may be hiding it on us, and we're going to see it when it comes out. But right now, based on the trailer they cut, I don't know. Like the guy they casted for Mick Mars doesn't look like Mick Mars. The dude who's playing Tommy Lee, kind of, you know, he has Tommy Lee's height for sure. The guy who's playing Nikki Sixx is on point. He definitely has Nikki Sixx looks down. The Vince Neil, again, I can't base it on a 2-minute trailer, but I wasn't totally sold on it. And again, I don't know, are we getting Motley Crue vocals? Is it Crue singing, or are we getting these guys singing? So I don't know until I actually see the content of the video. But yes, David Johnson, I'm very much looking forward to it. I just kind of wish we would have gotten more of a theatrical release rather than straight to Netflix.
Cool. All right. Let's see here. Dugu Drapey says favorite Freddie one-liner.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Yeah, it's such a go-to. I think I'm going to say, let me just Google this shit, make sure I've got this right here.
I take that back. Nancy, I'm your boyfriend now. I gotta go with that.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That is a great one. Let's see here. Doodly-dee. Yeah, I like that. I'm your boyfriend now, obviously, because it also symbolizes that what's his face is dead. So I'm probably going to say you are all my children now too. I like that from part 2. Yeah, you are all my children now. I like that shit. Let's see here. iPimp Troll says, you probably answered this, but I fell down the stairs when I was 12 and hit my head, so my memory is shit. How scary did you find the first...
Into the question.
I know. How scary did you find the first Blair Witch Project movie to be? Okay, well, here's my quick...
Good question.
It is a great question on the Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project came out in 1999. I was 20 years old. We were 20 years old, Tony and I.
20 years old this year?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And I
Oh.
worked at a movie theater. This was when movie theaters were starting to become like what they are now. Like right now, when you go to a movie theater, you get the stadium seating, you get the gigantic screen, right? Well, as you guys know, it wasn't always like that. That started to really sort of, at least here in Canada, it started to really hit they were building those big like Coliseum type movie theaters that are round and circular, you know, all that kind of shit, in the mid to late 90s. And so I worked at one, and it was called the Coliseum at the time. It's not called that anymore, but and this was in Ottawa, where I grew up, which is our nation's capital here in Canada. And I worked there and for the summer before I went to college. And I remember the Blair Witch Project came out, and I remember there was this thing that was like, it's so scary, people are throwing up. Well, no, that's not what it was. It's not that it was so scary people were throwing up. It's that people were throwing up because it was shot on 16 millimeter, and you're projecting 16 millimeter like this because they're out in the woods on a gigantic 60-foot screen. So what are people getting?
Yeah,
Motion sickness.
like what Dave's saying, to put it into better context, if you ever watch documentaries on The Exorcist, when people talk about when people first saw The Exorcist in 73 and they were passing out and throwing up, they were legit passing out and throwing up because they were fucking scared. What Dave's talking about in comparison is they're throwing up because of the motion, and I agree with you on that.
Yeah, well, it was the motion sickness, and it was very apparent to me when I went to see it. You know that you're watching this movie, and of course they're going like this a lot. So I remember myself and this girl that I worked with. We went into the theater because at that time people don't do this anymore, but at the time, because these theaters were new, one of the things that was part of the whole experience of these new theaters, is that you had somebody introduce the movie at the beginning. You know, it's like, hi, and welcome to the Coliseum. But that didn't last long because people were like, get the fuck out of here and just play the fucking thing. Of course, I loved it being a voice guy. I could do all sorts of funny voices and shit like that. But anyway, so I told them how long the movie was and what they were seeing and that kind of stuff. And I said, now people have been known to actually throw up, not because it's scary, but because of the motion sickness. If you suffer from motion sickness, the theater's packed, right? If you suffer from motion sickness, I want to hand you out. And we had these tiny little popcorn bags that we literally, myself and I forget the girl's name, we handed probably about, I don't know, 50, 60 out, because, like you'd see these people going, me, and now whether somebody actually used it during that showing, I don't know. But I do remember walking past where Blair Witch was playing, Sunday afternoon or something like that, and the door to the theater opened up and this young girl comes out. I don't know, she's 15, comes out and right there on the carpet. And I was like, holy Jesus. And of course the marketing behind that, people were using, so scary, people are throwing up. And it's like, no, that's not why people are I'm not saying some people didn't find it scary. I'm just saying that's not why they were throwing up. It's because it's 16 millimeter projected on a 60-foot screen. And because of the type of movie, right? They have these cameras in the woods and you're doing this and you're watching that on a big screen. You're like, oh, it's just crazy. Anyway, so I didn't particularly find it scary. I thought it was one of the reason why the Blair Witch, if that movie had come out today, the same movie today, wouldn't have done anything. It was the perfect timing for that movie. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying that it was one of the first movies to be marketed that way on the internet, which is actually true. People thought that was real. The ads on the ads on the radio, and then you'd hear like the voiceover at the very end, based on a true story, or he'd read that thing about such and such and the where, and then 10 years later their footage was found, or like whatever it was, and you'd read that. And of course this is 1999. This is the internet's infancy. I mean, this is before social media. This is before, this is before, like I had my email address for like 6 months at this time. Like everything is new. What today did not exist. So when people are hearing this on your car radio, you're like, what the fuck? Like now you're aware that this is part of the marketing. Then you're like, shit, I got to go check. People thought it was real. My mom thought it was real. Everybody thought it was real. Not everybody. I mean, certainly you began to, but there were a lot of people that were like, whoa, holy shit. And that was part of its marketing, was to market this as if it's, people know, but let's not, if they don't ask, we don't say, right? And it was really sort of this illusion through the ads and through the internet. Like, is this real? No, that's not real. No, it's real. Is that real? No, it's real. And you have people arguing back and forth about whether it was real or not, and it was just, so it was almost like this cultural thing that just, it made like $155 million at the box office, became the highest grossing independent movie in motion picture history at that time. Right. And I think it overtook Halloween, I believe.
It did.
So it's like, it was just so, but you watch the movie now and you're like, because what they did to market the movie then, you couldn't do today because people are too wise. People know, so it wasn't, it was, yeah. Anyways, that was my thoughts on it. Tony, what about you?
Well, my night seeing Blair Witch was a little bit more of an adventure. Yeah, I wish my buddies were watching this because they would sure shit. Okay, let's put it into context. Where I grew up in Connecticut, I grew up in the northeast corner of Connecticut, right on the border near Massachusetts. in Connecticut. So it's a very wooded area to begin with. And, you know, we're young, teens, early 20s, and we smoked a little bit. But then my buddy was like, hey, you want to take some acid? And I'm like, all right, why not? So I already had smoked some weed. Now I'm going to drop some acid. And now I'm going to go watch the Blair Witch Project. Holy fuck, did I trip balls watching that movie. And then when I went to watch it sober, I was like, okay, this movie's not as bad. But when I first saw it, dude, I couldn't even look in the woods. I literally walked out of the theater like this. I was on such a bad fucking trip from that. To be young and 20 again, to get away with that shit. I couldn't do that. No. No. Kids do not do drugs. That was literally probably the one and only time I ever tampered with hallucinogenic stuff. But it did make the movie. It made it an interesting ride for those 90 minutes. I can tell you that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
Awesome. I don't know if I would use the word awesome, but it was.
I just mean the story's awesome.
Pretty much young and stupid is
That's great.
All the super chats. Just want to make sure because I thought.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I've got them here. I know where they are. I just want to quickly get through a couple of ones that aren't here. Let's see. Diddly-dee. Movie Chat and More says The Rock, The Undertaker, or Stone Cold. Ooh, I love them all for different reasons. But I'm gonna say Stone Cold.
Stone Cold. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bradley Heath says, what are your thoughts on Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy? I'm not convinced they're doing it. I know Rian Johnson says no, I'm still doing it, but I think that could be just political cinematic rhetoric. And it would not surprise me if it comes out that he's not doing it. I'm not convinced that he's doing it, but he could still be doing it. Of course, he's doing another movie right now that he's in post-production on, I believe. I don't know. I don't think Disney's canceled it, but I think they're giving breathing room.
Yeah.
And I think it wouldn't surprise me because Disney's going to focus on episode 9. And then, of course, they want to focus on The Mandalorian and their streaming service and their TV shows and things like that. Once episode 9 is done, which is essentially the end of the episodic films as we know it right now, at least, I think Disney's going to make sort of a shift and is going to start focusing on their streaming and their television, quote unquote, series. Yeah. Whether or not Rian Johnson then will go off and do a new, maybe that's when he'll do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if he never does. I'm still not convinced he's going to, but we'll see.
Agreed. Joanne from Canada did a super chat here a little bit back. She said, hey, Tony, so Dave said he would one day explain your nickname Tony Two-Time. Dave, explain it.
Oh, Joanna from Canada. I missed that super chat. Thank you, Tony. Joanna from Canada. Hey, Tony Two Times.
How that all started. Dave started it.
Well, there was we didn't do this live because because we couldn't do this. This was about 2 months ago or so. When Tony and I hooked up online to test something. And so we were having a conversation through Google Hangout that was not live like this. And there was an echo on Tony's end. And we couldn't figure out for the life of us what the hell was causing the echo. He was plugging this in, unplugging that, changing that, changing that setting. And every time he'd say something, it would be like, so what do you, I don't know what you're doing. And it was so funny. And he couldn't hear it. To him, he sounded fine.
Yeah.
And so much so that we had to do like private live chats just so I could send it to him so he could see what I was talking about. And it just became really funny. And of course, there's, in Goodfellas, there's that guy, his name is Tony Two Times because he says everything twice. He's like, how you doing? How you doing? So that was kind of like what Tony was saying. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. And dynastic.
Dan, I think it's Dantastic.
Fantastic. I'm sick, guys, and I took some NyQuil. I took some NyQuil about an hour ago, and it's now kicking in, so I'm on a good ride at the moment. Follow up cool. How you would remake. I wouldn't remake Jaws. I wouldn't even touch Jaws.
No, and the reason why I wouldn't remake Jaws is because I said this, I think, on a stream a while ago. I don't believe the digital technology is at a point. I'm not talking about Sharknado, that spoofy shit that's supposed to look cheesy and dumb. I don't believe that the digital technology, maybe you got to get James Cameron in there. I don't know. Right now, every shark movie I've seen, whether it's Deep Blue Sea, whether it's The Shallows, whether it's 47 Meters Down, whether it's, I don't know, pick your shark movie, where obviously you're using a digital shark. The shark looks extreme. I think the shark looks more fake today than it did in Jaws.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean, look, for me, the fakest part about Jaws, like the scene today where you're like, okay, yeah, and kind of is the scene where he kind of leaps out of the water at the end and onto the orca and he's, going after Quint. It's low, but everything, but because of the issues they had with Bruce the shark, and they had to rely on what is now known as the Jaws effect, right? To keep things, rely on the music and, the less is more, which actually worked in its favor. There's no need to remake it because you would, because in my opinion, because the digital technology still hasn't mastered the shark, and certainly you don't want fish that, that look like the fish in Aquaman, because those don't look real at all. There's no point in remaking it because you would have to then just keep the shark at bay in my opinion. So you already have a story where you do that, and the characters are so rich. That's one thing you have to remember, that if you are going to keep your main antagonist, in this case the shark, at bay, you better make sure your characters are so rich and fulfilled and well developed that we become emotionally attached to them, because you're not showing us the big prize. So we have to get lost in what's over here, and it has to be strong. That's one of the reasons why the 2014 Godzilla film didn't work for me. They kept Godzilla hidden, but the characters were garbage. So it was just frustrating. It was just like, well, I don't give a fuck about these characters. And Bryan Cranston bit it in the first 20 minutes. So now I really don't give a shit about these characters. And you're not showing me Godzilla. If the characters were really well developed and rich, then it would have worked. Yeah. So right now I'm just kind of like,
would you agree that the last decent shark movie we got was Jaws 2, where the shark was at least somewhat decent? Because I do like the shark in Jaws 2. It's not as good as Bruce, but what they did in the sequel to Jaws, I thought they did an admirable, really good job with it. And honestly, I think that was the last time we got a somewhat decent shark film.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think it is, and it's unfortunate because well, it's just that Jaws is like, watch Jaws, and just watch everything around Jaws, the characters, the story, the performances, it's so strong today. So why are we remaking it? Can you tell the story better today? Like, I don't think of the story now. Can you tell the story better today? I don't think so.
And who can you imagine playing Quint better than Robert Shaw?
Well, I think like again, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think you could find great actors to play these roles, but there's no, like, my opinion is that when you're going to remake something, there has to be a reason to do it. It's either because when the movie came out 30 years ago, it was ahead of its time. So now it's more culturally relevant today. So the impact is potentially going to be great. Okay, that's one reason. Another reason is that the technology way back then, because the part of the whole story was technology, right? Like it was really, okay, well, we can redo that better today. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Like, even though Jaws is the star of the movie, there's so much. It's not really about the shark. It's about this chief. It's about this guy who's afraid of the water, who risks himself to go out onto the water, and has this mayor that is just all about money and power, and he's willing to sacrifice the townspeople to make a buck, and like that's what Jaws is all about. And then and then there's the shark. Do you know what I mean? So there's no need to remake it. Like, I mean, there's no. Jaws, the shark looks in the scenes that it looks pretty fucking good still, man. I think it looks really good. So yeah, not yet anyway.
We got one more super chat from Chris Barber, and yes, Baber, sorry, Chris, that is JFK on the back of my wall. JFK is my boy. Me and JFK celebrate the same birthday, May 29th. Yeah, both Bobby and John Kennedy, even though way before my time. John Kennedy probably was my favorite president. Bobby Kennedy would love to have seen what he could have done to go on and do. And do I think there, was Oswald the lone gunman in multiple shooters? I mean, the conspiracy side of me, things like maybe there was more than one person there. Then, I mean, it has been proven that it is possible that Oswald could have gotten off the shots by himself as well too. We're never going to know. Obviously, we're never going to know. Especially with all the shit that went down after Oswald got captured and get shot and whatnot. That would be a fun show to do. I'm going to hold off on talking about that more. But Dave, your quick thought on Kennedy's assassination. Do you think it was Oswald, or do you think he was multiple people?
In my humble opinion,
show on this one day.
A Canadian's opinion. I will say that no, I don't believe he acted alone. I don't believe I don't necessarily believe that he was a part of it. I think it's look, I mean, you watch the Zapruder film, and no, I don't buy it.
You know,
and I'm sorry that the what's it, commission or whatever had, I mean, the magic bullet theory. Look, dude, like there's so much.
We're stupid.
There's so much that doesn't make sense.
No,
so much that doesn't make sense.
No,
and we'll just leave it at that, and maybe we'll do a show on it.
You know what's crazy? Just really quickly, just to we'll end it there, but I've been there and I've stood at that spot where he gets the third shot. You don't understand. He's less, I'm talking, he might even be 30 yards away from the triple underpass. 30 yards away. And you think about that when you're driving in a motorcade, 30 yards away from safety. If he doesn't get that headshot, he's totally, I mean, does he live? Who knows? But he has a better chance at living. And when you're standing there and you realize just how close he is to that triple underpass, you're like, what the fuck? Like, you're that close to safety. It's a very surreal experience because you know what took place there. So,
yeah. Well, just keep in mind too. I mean, if it was Oswald alone and he acted alone, and we're supposed to believe that he just came to this idea himself to do this all on his own, there would be no reason for Jack Ruby to kill him. What is Jack Ruby trying to shut him up about?
I don't know.
Right. So
Brandon Gregory did do a super chat. I'm going to let Dave answer some questions here. And Brandon, I'm going to go digging through here and find your super chat while Dave.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay, let's do some rapid fire here. Let's see here. Dude, question. Would you both like to see a horror film that lives in the same universe as Scream, and we get a cameo from an older Sydney, and where the plot doesn't revolve around her or Ghostface? Thanks. Me, no. I think Scream has run its course. I think Scream is, because there's a certain... Scream is fun. A Scream it should have been a one-off. Now, don't think, oh, Dave, you and your one-offs. No, I'm just saying, because the gimmick, the shtick that Scream is, can only go on for so long. I mean, it's just, you're just doing the same thing again. Oh, it's a couple of people. We got to find out who they are. It's, we must know who they are. And they're fun movies to watch. I mean, they're always fun to watch because they're quite witty and they're quite, spoofy in their own right, because obviously they're taking the rules of horror and trying to, do this, that. It's fun, but to do another Scream, it's like, I mean, it's just a hello again. I mean, it seems like it's ran its course for me. And maybe in the future you reboot it. And I mean, long in the future, where you reboot it relevant for its time, so you can tell, oh, this is like a Scream movie, but it's for today. And I know that might piss some people off, but there's no need to go on. I mean, I watched the first Scream, then I watched the second one. By the third one, you're like, okay, by the fourth one, you're like, okay, it just, I don't know. I just don't think there's a need. I think it's done. It's ran its course. And I think that's one of the, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why the Scream TV show ran into some trouble, because they did a first season where that was all like that. And then they contemplated doing some, because they realized, well, what are we going to, how the fuck can we do 5 seasons out of this? Hello again, hello again, hello again. I mean, this is just getting silly. It's getting silly. You can't just continue this on. Somebody's, and especially today with tracing and, figuring where you are and GPS and location, they fucking catch that son of a bitch like that. Like, I mean, back in the 90s was a bit different, right? But now, no.
I found Brandon's question, which was the super chat here. Possibility of Kubrick faking the moon landing? No, I don't think so. Your thoughts on that?
Oh,
filmed it, faked the moon landing. I've heard the stories behind that. I don't buy into it. Maybe, but I don't know.
I don't. Oh, well, I mean, obviously, literally, do I? Well, obviously, I don't know. But I
In the
don't.
literal, yeah, like Dave said, I don't know in the literal. Do I think he did? No.
Yeah. Do I think he did? No, I don't think so. But when you get to the level of all, there's a lot of strange shit that goes on. A lot of strange stuff, a lot of power, and a lot of weird. I don't know. I don't know. The moon landing is certainly an interesting topic for sure.
For sure.
Let's see here. Let's get one that's not a super chat, just so people are feeling included. Let's see. The Mega Road Project. Hey, Dave, what do you think of Amityville Part 2, The Possession? I haven't seen that in years, so I have no idea. Can't remember. Cade Fisher says, could I ask your guys' take on Deadly Friend is? Great content, by the way. Deadly Friend. Is that a movie? I've never heard of it.
I haven't heard of it either.
Don't know. Sorry about that, Kate.
Zigo RZ Skate 45. Tony, how come you don't upload to YouTube as much? Because I am solely focused on my Instagram and putting content on there and producing video, photography film on Instagram. And that takes a lot of time to develop my film and shit like that. So you can follow me on there, and I post pretty much every day on Instagram. So
the link, by the way, folks, to Tony's Instagram is in the description.
Yeah, so I still make content. I'm just not really doing the video thing. I'm focused on the photography shit.
There you go. There you go. Let's see here. Let's see. We get one. Michelle Larsh. Is it Larsh? I always got to make sure it's Larche, maybe, perhaps.
You guys once a week with Dave. So, I get
That's right.
Get my YouTube fix.
That's true too. Hey guys, what are your thoughts on the Marvel movies, especially the new one coming out in March 7th? I guess you mean Captain Marvel. Well, I'm not a superhero expert, I think, but I will say that I think the Marvel movies, the ones I have seen, I haven't seen a lot of them, but the ones I've seen, like Deadpool 2, the first Avengers film, they're fun movies. I'm not emotionally attached to the universe of the characters, so I'm not the best person to ask about that. But definitely, I certainly can look at the movies and appreciate them for what they are. And certainly I understand a lot of people love the hell out of them, and they're very well-made films, and people get lost in, the characters and everything. So you got to tip your hat to it.
I love Brie Larson. I love anything Brie Larson's in the room. Kong, she was on Kong Skull Island. I believe, that was Brie Larson. I'm looking forward to her portrayal of Captain Marvel, and obviously looking forward to the conclusion of this 10-year journey that we've been on with RDJ and Chris Evans and the rest of the cast of the Avengers. And when Endgame comes out here, what's it, April? I think Endgame comes out. So April, May.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Yeah. So, end of April.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be really good. Like Dave, here's the thing. I'm not a comic book nerd. I don't read the comic books. I love the movies. I love the content that Marvel has put together over the last decade. I think it's great, and I appreciate the cinematic part of it. If you were to start getting into some knee-deep questions about what do I think about this and this, that, that's a question for my brother. My brother's a comic book guy, and he reads comics to this day. But I like Dave. I enjoy it. I think they're good films.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. Let's see if we get somebody. Let's see.
Did we get the chats?
Yes, I believe we did.
Oh no, you got a first super chat ever. Hey Dave, first super chat from Josh Brandenburg. First time ever.
Oh, did I miss that? Where's that? Oh, yeah, you're right. There we are. Josh Brandenburg. Hey, Dave, first super chat ever. Well, thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. James Jude Courtney, Michael Myers movie with Donald Pleasance Loomis. Thoughts?
Can't really happen.
Well, no, it can't happen. I guess he means hypothetically. I think, I would be sure. I mean, but what Donald Pleasance? Are we talking about an old Donald Pleasance? Are we talking about a 70s Donald Pleasance? Or, I don't see why not. I thought James Jude Courtney did a good job.
I know how to answer that. Give me Donald Pleasance from Halloween 4 and switch out George P. Wilbert and put James Jude Courtney as Michael in Halloween 4.
There you go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
I Pimp Troll says, did you guys like the Crow movie that was also a Aaron Zukowski? This was also an Aaron Zukowski question. I haven't seen The Crow in years, probably since it came out. I remember really liking it though.
My VHS of it's right up there. I watch The Crow probably like once a year. I'll pop it on my VHS and watch. I still like to watch my old VHS tapes. The Crow is definitely one of them. I think we were talking about this not that long ago. I forget anytime I do watch The Crow that the Halloween Curse of Michael Myers, the original theatrical trailer is actually at the front of it, where it's actually called Halloween 666, the origin of Michael Myers.
That's right.
It's really neat to see that when I do pop The Crow in, but I love it. It's a great story. Unfortunately, what surrounds it with what happened with Brandon Lee is, it's unfortunate, it's tragic, but he gives a stellar performance, and it's a great movie.
For sure. Yep. No, I agree. Let's see here. Mike's Horror Corner. Dave, who's your favorite Universal monster? Wolfman. I'll say the Wolfman. I like the Wolfman.
It's kind of a toss-up between Frank and Drac. I mean,
Frank and Drac. Tony knows him on a personal first-name basis.
But I'm gonna probably screw up the name. Let's see. Lugosi was Dracula, correct? And Karloff was Frankenstein.
I believe.
Someone correct me on that.
So. Yes, I think you're right.
But yeah, if I'm right, I think it's Lugosi was right, because Wolfman was Lon Chaney, right?
Yeah, I think so.
God,
or was he the Mummy? I can't remember.
I'm getting the names right, but I think I'm getting the characters wrong.
Right.
I think I got the names right, but I think I'm getting the characters wrong. But I
think you're right.
Someone will correct me in the chat room, and we'll be able to correct that here in a minute. But yeah, probably Frankenstein or Dracula. Actually, what's my favorite movie from all of that time frame is actually, if anyone hasn't seen this, I highly recommend you throw this in October during the month of like when they're showing scary movies, because this is always a go-to for me. Is Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Dracula. And it's all the original, like Karloff, Lugosi, and the other dude there, Chaney. I think Chaney's in that, with Luke Costello and Bud Abbott. And it's a great fucking movie. Great monster. Funny as shit. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a great flick from that period of the monster era and genre.
Sure. Yeah. No, it is. It's a classic. Absolutely. Let's see here. Brandon Gregory says, in your opinion, what makes a great movie? Well, it's a very subjective question, but I think a great movie, this is how I'll answer it. What makes a great movie? What makes a great movie? It's very subjective, but what makes a great movie for me, and I think is a movie, generally speaking, has to move you in a certain way. And I don't necessarily mean emotionally, where you're crying or you feel upset, but a comedy movie has to be, it's got to be funny, and you have to find it funny. And a scary movie has to be scary. But then there's variables at that. Like there's not just something we can say that paints everything with a broad brush, right? Because there's so many shades of gray and there's so many different variables. So when somebody says, well, what makes a scary movie? It's like, well, what's scary to me might not be scary to you, which is why the best scary movies tend to be psychological films, where they tap into the unknown aspect of all of our fears, as you've often heard me say. Because when they keep sort of the antagonist or the scary things at bay a bit, or in the shadows and things like that, we're all going to go to a dark place. I might go to a different dark place than you, but we're both going to go to our own version of what's really scary to us when we're thinking about what's over there, or what does that mean, all that kind of shit, right? So we experience it the same way. Whereas if they show the main antagonist or the scary thing right out in the open so soon, you might go, oh, that's really scary. And I might go, nah, fuck, that's just stupid. So now they've already lost me, right? So, and then you can sort of, whittle it down from there. And that's just with the horror genre. Then we talk about comedy. Well, you say what's funny to us here in North America might not be funny to somebody over seas, or some people don't get the British humor, but some people really do. Some people like crass toilet humor. Some people like more witty humor, right? So it is a very subjective experience. Yep. But I think at the end of the day, what makes a great movie is something that can be quantified in the sense of that it is universally agreed upon to move you in a certain way about the human experience. So, because I think that's where I tend to go.
Yep.
And I tend to point to a movie like The Shawshank Redemption. I can't identify with Andy Dufresne directly. I've never been in prison. I've never been charged for, falsely murdering my wife and her lover.
That we know.
But that we know of. That's right. I mean, there was a couple of times in there, but it's
Canada. He's really an American.
That's right. That's right. I fled here. That's right. But in reality, the one thing we all share in common is we're all human beings.
Right.
And if there's one thing and another thing we share in common is that we are all going to die. There's nothing we can do. We all will die.
Yep.
Each and every one of us right now is going to die. There is literally nothing we can do about it. So when there is a movie that taps, sorry?
Which is a shitty feeling because it's inevitable. You can't, no matter how hard you try to fight it, it's gonna happen.
It's going to happen. So I always point to, it's not that there aren't great horror movies or great comedies or great this, but when I think a great movie, for me, it's something that is very moving in terms of the human experience, because it's something that is the bigger picture.
Yep.
It's something that is, wow, like it makes you feel like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It makes you want to turn to your friend and be like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, because you begin to realize how small we really are.
Yeah.
And how and when you watch something like The Shawshank Redemption and what he went through, because he, all this, like, you look, now that's a great movie. And that doesn't mean there aren't great horror movies and dramas, but it's a very subjective experience. But I think something that can be universally agreed upon as a great movie is something that taps into something we all share together, which is the human experience. So,
well, I've always said this. I've got the Holy Trinity when it comes to great films. If you want to just use these as your arcs to follow, and at least push towards to strive to do just as well, The Exorcist, The Shining, and A Clockwork Orange. And the cool thing about all three of those films, you can look at them and go, okay, The Clockwork Orange is a very artistic storytelling and the compositions that Kubrick did in the framing of the shots, while visually in the story that's being told, you're seeing these disturbing scenes being told in these scenes, which I've not seen anything as disturbing, and I've said this many times, like you get in A Clockwork Orange. And I do think it's purposely because of the way Kubrick framed his shots. It's the effect of that you as the viewer, like Dave was just talking about there, what you're watching, it brings you into the movie that at sometimes, even to this day, if I'm watching it, I might wince. I might go, like in the movies, almost over 40, if not, it is over 40 years old. And then parallel to that, The Shining, it has that same artistic style to it, but nails it on the suspense and the buildup on the suspense. From the beginning,
and the layers
and the
layers of symbolism in The Shining is ridiculous.
It's the same director. It still has that artistic style to it, but just totally different type of storytelling. And then The Exorcist, the reason why, I say that there has never been a possession film like The Exorcist, and there'll never be one like The Exorcist, because I'm not a fan of when they get into these types of possession movies today, they tend to show too much. When you watch The Exorcist, what they show, it's very simple. It's subtle. It's right moments, whether there's shit flying across the room, happens like once. The drawer opens on the side, happens like once. There's a moment there where, the dressers are moving and shit like that, happens once. There's not this like overbearing of like all different types of effects and, the girls like this and all that stuff. Yeah, I understand in the added scenes and stuff, you got the spiral walk and on all that. And I get that argument. But still, when you do watch The Exorcist and you break down The Exorcist, it's very simple storytelling. It scares the shit out of you. And like me and Dave have also said, when you watch a film like The Exorcist and you watch different scenes in the movie, whether it's the priest running around the track, I just learned this. I didn't realize it. This just goes to show you how fucking good Freakman, I always mix them up. Freakman and Blatty. Blatty wrote it. Freakman directed it. This is how good of a storyteller Freakman is, okay? They shot this film in July and August. It's a summertime, right? But when we're watching that scene with the priest running around the track and the cop is there watching him, we're meant to think that it's mid-November and it's fucking freezing cold outside. But they actually shot this in over the course of the summer in a 4-month time frame. So yet we're supposed to believe that it's like, you know, early October and shit. That's fucking really good and very smart storytelling for you as a viewer to make you feel like I'm, you know, in this scene and it's cold out and it's dreary. And the same thing like in the bedroom scenes. I learned this not too long ago too. Do you know that they intentionally put special types of air conditioning units in that room that they were in, and they got the temperatures down to 20 below zero to get so that you're seeing authentically the breath coming out of Linda Blair and oh Jesus, what's the priest's name there? God, I'm drawing a name.
Max von Sydow?
Max von Sydow, yes. So when you're seeing their breath in that scene, that's their real breath. That's not digital. And it's like those little things that bring you into the movie. They don't do that shit today. And that's why today it's just not as effective. So if I'm going to tell someone out there what makes a good movie, what should you aspire to as a filmmaker? Just watch those 3 films, use that as your Bible, and you're good to go. You know, you start getting into more of the fake shit and you're going to lose my interest real quick.
There you go. Great answers. Great answers for sure. Okay, let's see here. ACDC 113089 says, did you guys hear about the movie Knives coming out this Thanksgiving? It's a whodunit starring Daniel Craig and Jamie Lee Curtis. I have. Isn't that the one that Ryan Johnson is directing?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it is. Anyways, Bob McFucker Cakes, who is also a new
cakes.
Yes, who's a new patron of mine, by the way. Thank you, Bob. Says, Dave, do you think the Halloween franchise has also run its course? Oh, come on, Bob.
Really?
I think Bob's just trying to get me going on a rant.
Really?
Yes, it has. Let's see here. Let's see. Another super chat from Zagor's Skate 45. Am I saying that right? Thank you. Nonetheless, appreciate it. You guys enjoy the Leprechaun flicks? You know,
I've never even watched one.
I saw the first one with Jennifer Aniston years ago.
She's in that. I knew she was in that, but I totally forgot that she's in that film.
This is before Jennifer Aniston was Jennifer Aniston.
Is this pre-Friends or at the beginning of Friends?
Pre-Friends, but oh yeah. Yeah.
Or is it like right on the border? Because Leprechaun came out what, mid-90s, I thought.
It's pre-Friends.
I know season 1 of Friends is 94. Because 10 years, 94 to 2004.
Yeah, it was 93.
Okay, so it's just like on the brink of her going into Friends.
That's right. Yeah, and I think I watched. I mean, it's fun to watch, but I wasn't really a big fan of those movies. No. Thank you for the super chat though. Let's see here. Scrolling. And again, folks, if we don't get to your question, remember it's not personal. There's a lot of them and they're going by, and Tony and I like to, be thorough when we answer.
What I meant by when I knew she was in, meaning like, it just like subconsciously, I knew she was in the movie. I just like, cause I remember seeing the posters, and I remember, I've seen clips of Leprechaun on YouTube, and I've seen the scenes with her on there. I just like slipped my mind, like totally like had a brain fart, basically is what happened.
Sure. Yeah, no, for sure. Excuse me. Let's see here. Baladada. Alex Dodrill, favorite Bob Clark film? Well, I got to go Black Christmas for me.
Favorite? I didn't hear you. Favorite what?
Favorite Bob Clark film? I said I got to go Black Christmas for me. Let's see here. David Johnson, did you notice the palm trees in the background of Halloween 2018? I didn't, but I certainly noticed them in the background of Halloween 1978. But I'm sure there are a few palm trees in the background in 2018, but I've only seen the movie 3 times. And and one of the times I was watching the movie, I was doing a commentary while doing a live stream with you guys. So it's not like I was, so for all intents and purposes, I've seen the movie where I've been really paying attention and, listening to it without any distractions twice. Probably to the surprise of many people.
I've only seen the film once, and I have no desire to see it again anytime soon. I'm sorry, I saw it twice. So yeah, I don't know, I didn't pay attention. But anyway, on the flip side, Dave is a really great supporter of mine on Instagram. I appreciate you, contributing and commenting on my posts and being a good follower on Instagram. So thank you very much. Bradley Heath asked me a direct question. He's moving to Atlanta this week. Welcome to the ATL. Any advice? Yeah, get used to the world's shittiest traffic and get used to being stuck in it for like 3 hours a day. No, it's fun here. I mean, if you're moving into the city, it's a great city. It's booming. Hollywood, we're kind of getting there neck and neck with Toronto now as far as secondary location for filming. Yeah. In fact, we might be even with Toronto now. I don't think they're really. I mean, they do film in LA, of course, but they're subletting it out to our neck of the woods a lot. Dave gets the same amount of shit up his way as I get down here in Atlanta. So you're gonna love it. It's a great city. Well, welcome to the ATL.
There you go. Welcome to the ATL.
Right.
Let's see here. Okay. Retro Radioactive Gremlin says, I never hear you guys mention monster movies or body horror. Do you at all like any of Cronenberg's films? His version of The Fly could be argued as one of the best remakes ever. David Cronenberg, yeah. Do you want to know what? Just make sure that I
talking about what's his name there?
David Cronenberg, by the way, folks, is Canadian. He was born in Toronto. For those of you that don't know.
Are we talking about Goldblum's version of The Fly?
Yes,
that's the only one I've seen.
Yes,
there's an original one from like the 60s, right?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. No, we're talking about The Dead Zone was pretty good. Yes. And I like that. Yes, he did Scanners. That's right. Yeah. But funny enough, my favorite of his is A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen. I really like that movie. And I thought, what's his face? Ed Harris was awesome in that movie. That's one of my favorites by him. It's not a horror movie, but it's a really good movie. So for those of you that haven't seen it, check it out. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, The Fly is like the only one that I can honestly, looking at his IMDb right now. Oh no, I did see Cosmo. It's the Robert Pattinson movie. Yeah, this is if actually this is a great segue into that question that we had what we had talked about here, the question that was asked to me on Instagram. Cosmo whatever. Anyways, the film with Robert Pattinson in it. Pattinson gives a really great performance, and I mentioned this to Dave about a week or so ago, going into this Q&A. I wanted to know Dave's thoughts on how he felt about Robert Pattinson possibly rumored to be the new Batman, Bruce Wayne Batman. I got to tell you, if you've seen Robert Pattinson, not Twilight Robert Pattinson, I'm talking about what he's done recently in a lot of his independent films. Dude can fucking act. He's got some serious acting chops. And I tell you what, if they did cast him to play Bruce Wayne Batman, he's going to bring this shit back to probably like the Michael Keaton style of Batman. Because that's really where I don't see him going into the Christian Bale type Batman. I don't see him bulking up like that because he's a thin guy and he's probably about the same height as Keaton. I see him doing something along those lines, but making the character his own. And I'm fucking all for him doing it. Because again, I'm not talking Edward fucking vampire Twilight shit, but Robert Pattinson, the actor. If you're a film buff and you've seen his body of work as him as in like these independent films, dude's a fucking phenomenal actor. Dave, what do you think about Pattinson possibly being Batman?
I'm fine with it. I see the problem, the reason why so many people cringe at the thought of Robert Pattinson being Batman is because the biggest thing he's done in terms of penetrating the pop culture consciousness is Twilight. Yeah. Now, Robert Pattinson, again, in terms of penetrating, people are going to love that word, right. But you know, we're all adults here. I think you know what I mean. Penetrating the pop culture consciousness, right? Where it becomes, it's this big, you know, bombastic film. It's in the pop culture. Everybody's going to see it. I mean, you know what I mean? Not everybody, but I think you get what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So it's really hot. It's out there, interviews, trailers, people are talking. It's a big thing. It enters the pop culture. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I was just in Hollywood this past fall, and they have their handprints and shit at the Chinese theater. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Twilight has their handprints at the Chinese theater alongside Clark Gable, you know, and Harrison Ford. It's a travesty as far as I'm concerned. But it was the way it was a cultural phenomenon at that time. So Robert Pattinson has continued to work consistently, but in smaller projects that go under the radar. For example, David Cronenberg's film. David Cronenberg never makes movies that are blockbuster movies that you're, you know, running out to see that make $150 million at the box office. You know, he's just not, you know, but he's continued to act. He's continued to hone his skills. And
you want to see a film that he knocks your fucking socks off? Watch the movie Good Time. I'm telling you, anybody watch that film, Good Time?
I've seen it. I've seen it. It's a great performance.
He could have easily won the Academy for that performance. He was so fucking good. And I had to literally like go, wait, that's the same fucking dude from Twilight?
Yeah. So people have to remember that their job, they're acting. This is acting. Right. They are hired to portray a character in a certain role. Okay. He's not actually Edward from Twilight. He's an actor. Right. And so seeing what I've seen of him outside of that, if he was cast as Bruce Wayne in Batman, I go, yeah, I could, sure. Now it all depends on what they're going for, of course, right. But can I buy it? Do I see it? Yes. But it's because I'm smart enough and not naive enough to think that he's all he is Edward from Twilight, and all he's done is Edward from, no, it's not. It's not all he's done. It might be the only big thing that penetrated the pop culture consciousness because of all those damn books and all the screaming teenage girls that are now probably 25. But he certainly can make that transition, and he has in those smaller films. Watch some of his smaller films. He'll impress you.
Though? The first big blockbuster film that he technically was in was Harry Potter. I forget.
That's right.
You know, so
that's right.
Anyways, next question. What do we got?
All right. Well, let's see. We got a couple of super chats here. Let's see if we can get these couple of super chats out of the way. Okay, we did that one. Let's see here. We got Joe Smyjohn Jr. Smyjohn. Never heard your opinions. What do you guys think of the original Pumpkinhead movie? I'm assuming you mean. Also, Deadly Friend is an old 80s Christy Swanson movie. Think Short Circuit if it was horror. Okay. I'll have to check that out. I'm not familiar with Deadly Friend. The original Pumpkin, I was never a Pumpkinhead fan. I never really, I just wasn't. So I really couldn't care less about Pumpkinhead.
One of my close friends, my buddy, we've been friends since we were kids, and he's a horror fanatic like I am. One of his long-term relationships that he was in, the first time he ever told this girl that he loved her was while he was watching Pumpkinhead. That's the only thing I like. So the ongoing joke with him, anytime he's dating someone, I'll ask the girl, I was like, so have you watched a horror movie with him yet? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, then it's not that serious.
That's true. That's very true. That's the bar.
Circuit, though, if it was horror, I don't know. I love Short Circuit. You know, the '80s film.
Short Circuit. Both. Yeah. I don't know about the sequel, or maybe the sequel too. Anyways, they were both those movies were at least the first one I believe was shot here in Toronto in the '80s. So that's kind of fun. Because when I watch the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I can, you know, of course they remove the CN Tower, or they don't remove, but they don't shoot. Like the CN Tower is still the tallest tower in the Western Hemisphere. It's the tallest building. It's even taller than the Freedom Tower in New York. And it's iconic. It's almost 2,000 feet high. And at one time it was the tallest in the world until the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, that same one that Tom Cruise was hanging off of in Ghost Protocol, took it over. And now the CN Tower, there's been a couple of other towers, I think in China and Japan, that have etched it out just a little bit, you know, okay, we're up here now. Okay, we're up here now. So technically the CN Tower, I think, is like the 5th or 6th tallest in the world now. It's pretty marginal, but you know, technically you gotta, and it's huge. So a lot of the times though, when they shoot in Toronto, they try to pass it off as New York, which depending on where you shoot, you can do. And they never show the, you know, the CN Tower, but there's certain other buildings I've picked up on that I'm like, no, that's Toronto. So it's kind of cool when you see that. Suicide Squad is one that was shot here too. It wasn't actually shot right downtown, but it was shot in a suburb, and they're shooting. Oh, well, they're all done. They shot it 2 up here as well. Let's see. Okay.
Oh, Joanne from Canada. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, I think. You saw my recommendation on Instagram on Valentine's Day, what to watch, and it was Benny and June. That is actually like, look, if you're looking for like kind of like guys, if you're looking for like a sort of a chick film, but kind of could be a dude film at the same time, Benny and June is a really great 90s film with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp plays this like Buster Keaton type character. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good flick. So yeah, Joanna, I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the film because it's really good. It's a fun movie. It's a good film.
Cool. Yeah, I saw it years ago. Back in the 90s, probably. Let's see here. Oliver Mercer says, "Hey guys, great show. Do you think Michael Myers is a shamrock robot?" No.
No.
Let's see here. Rich Homie KD Wheezy 32. That sounds like a radio name. And now here is Rich Homie KD Wheezy 32 coming at you live from Brooklyn, New York. This is for both Dave and Tony. What are your 3 favorite years of the 80s?
Oh, like the actual individual years.
Actual individual years. This is from Rich Homie KD Wheezy 32.
Well, 89, I'll only say 89 because of the simple fact that was the first year I was ever introduced to the Halloween franchise with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Let's see, 3. Also 89 because that's when Dr. Feelgood came out, which is Motley Crue, which is one of my favorite Motley Crue albums. So it's still the same year. The 80s was such a great decade, man. It's like it's amazing that when we were kids in this period, that when you look at kids today and what they have versus to what we have, it's so night and day different, you know? Like I could never imagine a world with all this technology and stuff. Like you could, but the way we were envisioning it was so like, I mean, just like on another fucking world type stuff. Like
yes, exactly.
It wasn't anything like the way we envisioned it today.
It's hard to say, like, if it depends on what the crux of the question is. Is it what's the best, you know, individual years for movies, or what's the best individual year personally? You know, well, I mean, in terms of movies, that's, you know, pick your year. I mean, there's some that are better than others. 82 was a great year. I mean, 82, you had The Thing, you had E.T., you had Star Trek, I think, 2, The Search for Spock, I think was 82. You had Blade Runner, you had, I mean, you know, in terms of, I mean, 84 was a great year. 85 was a great year for movies, you know, with Back to the Future and, you know, yeah, 84 had the Temple of Doom. And like, I mean, it depends. I don't know. I think I'd have to look that up. For me individually, I can't really remember because I was such a young kid, but
I have to say probably 87, 88, 89, because that's about as much as my memory now at 40 almost can really recall. Yeah. You know,
I can remember probably, I can remember 85, 86 as a kid.
Yeah, 87, we're what? We're 7?
8.
8, or yeah, so 7 turning 8, you know, it's like, so it's like, how much do you really remember? I mean, there's bits, you know, stuff that I remember, but it's now at this age, it's like still images. Like I remember this, but I don't remember like the content of what the hell was going on. You know? Right.
Yeah. I remember a little bit. Well, actually, I remember a fair bit because I had older siblings too. And I remember playing He-Man and, you know, going outside and riding my bike and getting into all sorts of stuff as a, you know, an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, you know, a 10-year-old. So it's hard to say, but it's a good question. There's quite a few years there that was great for movies as well. Yep. Let's see here. Chris Baber, another super chat, says, Tony, send me I don't have to mention this on the feed following your IG from 5 minutes ago. Oh, what happened there?
Yeah, no, I responded to Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're good. We're good. All right.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
And
Let's
thanks for the follow on Instagram, Chris. Appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see. Joanna from Canada, $5. Me again. Well, thank you, Joanna. I appreciate that. I love your thumbnail as well. That's Fright Night, which I think was that shot up here? I think it might have been. Anyways, me again. Did you guys ever watch the 80s TV series V with Robert Englund? No, I did not, but I do know the show you're talking about.
Yeah, I know that was a show like that, kind of little famous, but then Nightmare kind of like, it was like right all in that time frame, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. David Quintanilla, super chat. Thank you. Big fan of your work, Dave and Tony. What are your opinions of
Verhoeven?
Oh, Verhoeven's films. Sorry, I was looking. I was like, Verhoeven films. Personally, Total Recall is my fave. Thanks. Have a great night.
Yeah, it's one of mine as well too.
Yeah. That's a good question. Total Recall is good.
Classic. It's a classic film.
It is. Yeah. It is. Let me see here. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything.
One. Basic Instinct, of course, that was iconic in the 90s, man. You have to remember something. Like, it's funny, like the world we live in now versus the world we lived in back in the early 90s, man. And that's you don't understand how controversial that shit was with Basic Instinct and the leg crossing scene and whatnot. Like, oh my, like, and as like a young teenager now, I'm like, this is like on the brink of becoming 13 years old. Like, we were sneaking that fucking movie into the house to watch Sharon Stone do the leg crossing scene and shit.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say Total Recall and RoboCop.
Yeah, those. Oh, Hollow Man's a good film too. I like
Hollow Man is underrated.
Yes,
Hollow Man's underrated.
Good. Elizabeth Shue, she was hot in that one. She was really hot in that movie. Bacon's performance was good.
There's always room for Bacon.
There's always room for Bacon. I would say those what we just mentioned, RoboCop, Basic Instinct, for just that nostalgia reason. Total Recall and Hollow Man probably would be.
Cool. Let's see here. Brody C says, my parents, your guys' age. I'm 13. Oh, great. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Why aren't you in bed, young man?
Exactly.
Let's see here.
Any love for Ted White, F-Base?
Oh, yes. Ted White played Jason in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Yes. Look, whenever I think of Jason Voorhees, I think of...
Didn't he play... Oh, no. Who's the guy I'm thinking of that played Michael? Jason?
Oh, Tom Morga?
Yeah.
Tom Morga, I think. That was him. When I think of Jason, I think of Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 3, Richard Brooker. And Ted White from Friday the 13th, Part 4. That's what I think of. Now, I also think of the gentleman who played him in Part 2 with the potato sack on his head, who actually, he just recently died a couple of months ago. And so those are my Jasons. Like, when I think of Jason, I think of 2, 3, and 4. Like, that's when I think of Friday the 13th and Jason, I think of that. Kane Hodder Jason, not so much. I understand that he is arguably the most famous Jason because he's the one that goes to all the conventions, although Ted White still goes, and he's like 89 or whatever he is. Yeah, he still goes. Poor guy, man. He's still not poor guy. I don't want to make it seem like he's I don't want to go, hey, fucking son of a bitch. But he goes, and
listen,
but Kane Hodder's the one that is most well known because obviously that's the late 80s, early 90s, and he
played him the most, but honestly, he's not in the best Jason films. I mean, Part 7 is okay, but my God, there's so many. I mean, don't get me started on the continuity bullshit that's so off with Part 7. Like, how the fuck did Jason go in from being drowned in basically at a dock near the campsite to all of a sudden now he's fucking... I mean, what did he do? Float upstream, to houses and whatnot.
Yeah,
like, he fucking camp go and shit. Like,
by the time, look, Friday the 13th has always been, to some degree, a little spoofy, just because of its nature of kids going back to this camp again, and I don't mean spoofy like breaking the fourth wall, Spaceballs kind of, not to that degree, but just it's always been a little sort of, no pun intended, campy. In comparison in terms of quality to something like the original Elm Street or Halloween or something. But by the time Kane Hodder became Jason, even though he's arguably the most famous because he was him the most, and he goes to all the conventions, and he's he's there, right? Out of sight, out of mind. He's never out of sight. Right. And a lot of people love him, and he's great, and he's a big dude, and okay,
very humble, very nice guy, absolutely,
very, very nice guy.
Yeah.
But like Tony said, and Tony's absolutely correct, by the time he became Jason, Friday the 13th was already running tired.
Right.
And they did 7, which was still at Camp Crystal Lake, but now you have the telekinesis. But only his second movie, they're bringing him to Manhattan. And then you got the third movie he's in, he's not even really in practically, because it's all about people eating him and shit. And then when he does able to, then he's in space, and so he's never really been. And then he wasn't even in Freddy versus Jason because they wanted a bigger guy to go up against Robert Englund, because Robert Englund and Kane Hodder are relatively the same size in terms of height. So I think Kane Hodder is actually a bit taller, but they wanted sort of a big Jason. They wanted how you feel about Kane Hodder in his movies. You feel like he's hulky. He's a big dude. Don't get me wrong in terms of mass, but he's not a very, very tall guy necessarily. So, it's they. You like, if you just have him on his own, you can cheat it through camera tricks and camera angles, and you can have him on boxes and shit. You can make him appear a lot bigger than he really is in his own movies. But when you put him up against Robert Englund, who's only about 5'9" or 5'10", if that,
you're being generous, maybe.
Yeah. He's not a tall guy.
I know.
He's my height, maybe a smidgy taller. You put Kane Hodder there, and it's kind of like, oh, we want something a bit. So they went with that. I forget his name now. I think the guy that played Jason, I'm always doing this because, you gotta put the Canadian love out there. I think he was Canadian. I stand to be corrected. The guy that played Jason, is that the guy that played Jason in Freddy versus Jason? I know everybody in the chat's like, who fucking cares, McRae? But sometimes I'm just like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
That's Friday the 13th that I've always said this. And it's my favorite one in the franchise that I thought was good was Friday 6. I live near the filming location for Friday the 13th.
Yeah, he is.
I go up there very, very frequently and do a lot of stuff up there at the campgrounds that's still there today. 6 was a really good, true to form Friday the 13th film. It's the only Friday the 13th film that actually had kids in it at the campsite, which is, you think about it, this is supposed to be based at a summer camp or whatever. But yeah, I mean, after 6, unfortunately for Kane Hodder, it just, like I said, 7's kind of like a guilty pleasure Friday film for me. Like, I will watch it. That's the last one I purchased in my VHS collection. I have 1 through 7, and same thing digitally. I have 1 through 7. I don't have 8, 9, or X, or no, I do have Freddy versus Jason. But yeah, it's just unfortunately for him, man. It would have been interesting to see if if Kane Hodder was Jason all the time, would what the franchise would have been like, but I agree with you. The guy who played him in part 4, I thought he did a great job.
Well, it was just, it was different. It was just a different, he was, yeah, it was just different. It was, but that's what I think of primarily because I do have a nostalgic connection to it, because when I was really into Friday the 13th, in 84 and 85 and 86 and 87, that's who was Jason. I mean, let's not forget that I believe it wasn't until, when was Friday the 13th part 7? Was that 88? I think it was 88, or was that 87?
87 or 88, because 6 came out in 86.
Part 7, we're going here. It was 88. Friday the 13th part 7, The New Blood, was 1988. So I was already 9.
Yeah.
So when I was into Jason in 84 and 5 and 6, it was those other guys. So by the time 88 rolled around, I wasn't really necessarily, I don't know what I was into in 88. I was 9. I was probably into Ninja Turtles, or I don't know. Whatever it was. Right. So I like Kane Hodder. I do. I think he's a really nice guy, but certainly not my favorite. Okay, let's get to the chat here. Let's keep going. I'm just scrolling up here again, guys. If I miss your chat, it's nothing personal. A lot of people in the chat room, 176 people watching right now. I think you guys are fucking awesome. You guys rock.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I've had a few of these questions this week on Instagram. I'm going to make a quick 1-minute statement on it. Someone asked me about what I thought about the Kraft situation. Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, got into some shit this week in Florida. Look, here's the thing. One, it didn't happen on the field, okay? So it has nothing to do with the team in itself and the team that I've been a fan of since I was a kid. He's a man. I mean, fuck, he's what, 80 years old? He's dating a woman who's like my age. She's like 4 decades younger than him, which basically in a way is almost prostitution, because let's be real, she's not going to date a dude who's almost 80 years old and whatnot if he's not a billionaire to begin with. And she's like some model or some shit. So like that right there should already tell you that type of relationship. I mean, look, it is what it is. He's a dude. He likes chicks. He went to a place and he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I mean, it's not the end of the world. So that's how I feel about that.
Wasn't that, isn't there like a kid song? Get your hand in the cookie jar, pull it out, or something. There was some like Sesame Street song or something. I don't know. Okay, so let's see here. Scrolling up.
Oh, this is not a Vinny. This is not a hoodie. I'm wearing a zip-up hoodie. The Halloween. It's a T-shirt of from Halloween 4. Cool.
Okay. Luke Glanton says, Dave, you look like my husband. Oh, well, okay. That's because I secretly am. No, just kidding. Let's see.
Tell Leah that.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I'll have to explain it to Leah, who probably won't be too happy about that. The Film Addict says, thoughts on Christine, 1983. Oh, great Carpenter movie. Yeah. Now that's a movie. I don't think it needs to be remade. Okay, I don't.
Nope.
But that's a movie that you could look at and go, could we remake this? But the only thing that I worry about remaking Christine is you got to keep the classic car.
Yeah.
You can't, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just like modernize. I mean, you could, but you can't modernize it and have it. What is it? As much as I love the Challengers or the Mustangs or whatever it is. I mean, it's not like it's just not gonna. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, could you update the movie and have a little better acting, make it a little more suspenseful? Yeah, you might be able to do that, but you got to keep that classic car. You got to keep the classic car, in my opinion.
Hey, Brody C wants to know, are you a fan of It? I'm a fan of the 1990s version of It, but I got to tell you, I liked the new remake of it when it first came out, but every time I've watched it since, I've not liked it. I don't know. It's not carrying well with me like the classic, iconic Tim Curry one that's obviously directed by Halloween alumni Tommy Lee Wallace. That one is just, it ages beautifully. This new one is not aging well with me. What about you?
Well, I've said this on many occasions on this channel. I went and saw it in the movie theater. My buddy Bruce and I did, and I liked it. I mean, I did. But I've only seen it twice. I saw it in the movie theater in September of 2017. I bought it on Blu-ray because I do want to have it for my collection. And then I watched it again, maybe 6 months or so ago. And I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked it the first time. Now, when I say not nearly as much as I liked it the first time, I'm not saying that I loved it the first time. I just found myself not liking it as much as I even did then. And it's difficult to put my finger on why, but it's just, I think for me, if you remove Pennywise, it's not a bad movie. Okay. It's certainly not a bad movie. And it's got some great moments and it's got some great atmosphere in there, but I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first time. It feels very run of the mill. It feels very par for the course of what you'd expect of a modern day horror movie. A lot of CG, a lot of at the screen like 5 times. Like, can you not use something else?
Right.
You know, or can you not utilize something else? It just feels like, let's pretend this is not it. Let's pretend it's not an It movie. Okay, let's pretend it's not that movie we had been waiting 30 years to see. Okay, so there was a lot of nostalgia around it, a lot of hype around it, a lot of, want to see it. Look, is it darker and more faithful to the book than the miniseries? Well, of course. Yes, it is. Is he a darker Pennywise that's more faithful to the adaptation of the... Yes, of course. But I still think they could have gone darker. I mean, really dark. I don't mean gross. I don't mean uncomfortable in terms of, having the ending of the movie actually have the kids all fuck Beth. I don't, or Bev, sorry, which is what happens in the book, essentially. I don't necessarily mean that. I just mean that there's things about it I think they could have gone psychologically darker, much darker. And I felt that Pennywise needed to be utilized more. And there's certain things about Pennywise I found maybe he was a little... I don't know. I don't hate the movie, but maybe I got to watch it again. I got to watch it again and really kind of take notes so I can better sort of intellectualize my thoughts. But I share the same things. I liked it the first time. I appreciate it. Watched the second time and thought, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I looking forward to the sequel, though, to see what they do? Yes, I am. And we'll see what happens.
Dr. Booze asked me, Tony, as a Kubrick fan, do I like Barry Lyndon? Yeah. I mean, I like all Kubrick's films. It's not my top 5.
It's a long movie.
It's just a freaking very, very long movie. And Nyron, Mariano Rivera. That's my favorite New York Yankee player.
There you go. Cool. Rock on. Okay, let's see here. Did I miss anything? Yeah, this thing's going by so quick. Ask your question again. If we haven't answered it. Let's see here. Common Sense says Bill did his best, but he couldn't hold a candle to the vibe Tim Curry brought to the table. I've watched it several times and I flat can't stand what they did with Bill.
Yeah.
There's an opinion there, folks. Let's see here. Movie Chat and More says Whitney Houston. Whitney, what about her? She died actually on February, I believe it was February the 12th, 2012.
Not too long ago.
Thanks,
Vinny, on the beard. We got to get Dave caught up. Dave needs to grow a full man beard like I'm doing here.
A full man beard.
Yeah,
man beard.
Like the Z. We'll both do like the ZZ Top thing. ZZ Top Halloween.
Can you imagine? That'd be amazing. Yeah. Justin Hill says, hey, Dave, H 2018 missed an opportunity to play off of Laurie's PTSD during the mannequin scene. Her mind should have started to show her Mike's mask on the mannequins before she... That's not a bad idea. I've always thought that during that Halloween 2018 scene that, look, how it played out was fine, but I always thought they missed an opportunity. Instead of Michael just suddenly sort of lunging from between the mannequins at her, which works. They should have had her sort of, she knows he's in that room. He has to be either that, or he went out the balcony, climbed off and ran off into the ether, which probably didn't happen. Right. And she knows this. She's locked down every other door upstairs. So she knows that the probability of him being in this room somewhere is really big. They should have played that more. They should have played up that suspense more, seen her face more, played to the audience. We are Laurie, like, where the fuck is he, right? And then as she's backing into the corner, you see his face slowly emerge from the darkness. And then you use an opportunity to play into Michael's MO, which is what he does, right? He doesn't necessarily spring from behind a couple of, mannequins and lunge at something. Not that he couldn't. It was 2018. It's a new Michael. But I just mean that would have been awesome to see. So I agree with you. There's a lot of missed opportunities in that movie for me.
The Film Addict asked us, this might sound weird. There's no weird question, no such thing. But which celebrity death hit you the most?
Great question.
Very great question. I don't think I've ever had a celebrity death hit me the most, but the person that outside of my cousin, I lost my cousin. He died when he was 19 years old. Me and him were very close. We were like literally like brothers. That was probably the hardest death that I ever had to go through. But the hardest death that I ever dealt with of someone that I never knew, never met, excluding like 9/11 events and things like that were obviously tragic that we all experienced as a world together. When the shooting happened up in Connecticut, my home state, and Newtown and Sandy Hook, There was a teacher there, Victoria Soto, she's now would be considered a celebrity in Connecticut. When you hear about the sacrifice that she made to save the children and try to save the children from the shooting that day, that really, like, that brought me to tears. Outside of my cousin's death, that's the only time I ever actually really was brought to tears and was moved by something, like that incident that happened in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. So yeah, that for me, that would be it. And again, I'm using the term celebrity loosely because now she has become so famous from, unfortunately, a tragic event. I always run the 5K. I run it now here in Georgia, but I'll run the 5K the day they do the run for her up in Connecticut, and donate and do what I do down here in Georgia. And I got a small little group of people who actually do the same on the same day. They'll run with me for that. What about you, Dave? Any celebrity hit you?
I can't say that, no. But I will say this. One that will hit me hard, not necessarily emotionally that I will cry over, but because I'm such a big fan and I have been a fan for so long, and is Harrison Ford. And when Harrison Ford got, but the thing I want to say about this, I often have this conversation with Leah, my girlfriend, for those of you that don't know, is we'll often talk about how. Sorry?
I said his sweet lovin's.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We often have this conversation because, when you think about legends in terms of the entertainment industry, whether it's music, whether it's movies, and you think about how old some of these legends are that are soon going to be passing. And I'm not trying to leave this on a down note, but it's one of those things where if you think of Harrison Ford, you think of Robert De Niro, you think of Al Pacino, you think of Steven Spielberg, you think of George Lucas.
Yeah, we're getting ages now where that shit's it's going to start happening.
Well, you think of Arnold, you think of Stallone, you think of, I mean, it's just all these people I just mentioned are all in their 60s or above. Some of them in their 70s or above. Now, I made a tweet and a Facebook post about a month or so ago where I said Steven Spielberg's mom lived to 97 and his dad is still alive at like 101 or something ridiculous like that. So I said, and Spielberg is like 73 or 4. So I said, does this mean he's got, if the genes fit in terms, not those types of genes, but like genes, if the genes fit, maybe we'll get 30 more years of Spielberg. But it's just what we're thinking about is like, wow, if you think about it, like these legends that have changed the face of, entertainment, whether it's Elton John or, I mean, he's up there too. And it's like over the next 10 to 15 years, maybe sooner.
A lot of the names you just said, they may not.
A lot of the names I just said may be gone.
Yeah. Which is
crazy. That is crazy. Yep. Crazy.
I think DiCaprio might hit me hard only because I've grown up with him. Well, he's our age, a year or two apart, and I've been following him really going back to Growing Pains. So when it gets to that point, because I've been following his career for so long, I've just never really. But yeah, when you say names like that, like Harrison Ford and Stallone and Schwarzenegger, I mean, Spielberg, like, yeah, you're right, dude. In the next 10 years or so, a lot of these guys may not be here anymore, which is really, it's kind of a surreal thing to say, which also for us means we're just getting old. And that's,
well, yeah, well, but it's amazing to think. I mean, these are people that, like, nowadays, the way we consume media, the way entertainment is very different, and it will be very different 20 years from now. We're entering that, how we consume movies, how we watch movies. This will seem archaic in 20 years, even before that.
What's next, right?
Yes, technology is expanding exponentially, and it's one of those things where when you think of a movie star, we remember a time, Tony, where you'd go to the movies because of the actor. You'd go to the movies because it was a Harrison Ford movie. You'd go to the movies because it was a Spielberg movie. This is what, like, you can, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that aren't good in certain roles who are identified with certain roles, but gone are the days of the bona fide movie star, the debonair movie star. Tom Cruise might be our last one in terms of from that era where he was that guy. He's a movie star, despite what you might think of him personally.
What about Tom Hanks? Would you
Tom
put Hanks
Hanks
in that same?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. And Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, these people are Schwarzenegger, Stallone, De Niro, Pacino. I mean, everybody I just said is over the age of 65. Well, not Tom Cruise. He's not even, I think he's 59 or whatever.
Yeah,
he's the youngest of them all. But even, but everybody, just put him aside. You're Scorsese, you're Lucas, you're Spielberg, as I said, all these, it's like, fuck, man. Like, it's like,
Carpenter's no young buck.
no, he's 70. Carpenter too. He's 70 years old, and it's not like he looks like he's running marathons. So I mean, it's crazy to think that what is a movie star today, or what people see as stars today, is you look at Bieber or I don't know
Bieber. I got a sore throat. I can't sing. Freddie Mercury dying of AIDS and still out there performing.
Yeah. It's crazy. Anyway, we could go on and on about that, but there's nobody that I've cried over. But I will say, when Robin Williams passed away, that because he's a legend, it was like, and way before his time, it was like, wow, like that. So now imagine that, like, think about that. It's just going to be crazy.
Well, like, for example, I remember being in school the day Kurt Cobain died, and I remember a lot of girls crying and being upset. Kurt Cobain's death didn't, I mean, even though I'm a huge Nirvana fan, it hit me, but like it didn't move me to tears. It was more like, because when you find out it was suicide and all that stuff, and you're just like, fuck, like, what the hell? But yeah, anyway, we got to end on a happy note.
Yes.
I want to end on a sad note.
Let's end on a happy note. So let's take, we'll take 2 more questions. Let's see here. We'll end on a happy note. Diddly D. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, well, okay. Well, 3, because I have answered ACDC 113089 before. Favorite meal or dessert? I got to say, I like a good pizza. What about you, Tony?
Same here. I like a good cheese pizza, even though now I can only eat it like once a month because it jiggles in my ass for a month later.
It jiggles in his ass.
Metabolisms, man, suck when you get to 39. It's not like they used to be, where you can burn that shit off real quick.
Totally agree. Let's see here. Scrolling down.
Kyle Sanford has asked this question a couple times tonight. Thoughts on John Carpenter's They Lived? Good film.
They Live. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while. That's the one.
Roddy Piper.
Yeah, that's the one where he's like, I came here to chew bubblegum and kick some ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum, or whatever he said. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was a fun movie. And doesn't that movie have like the longest choreographed fight scene in history or something like that? Like some just ridiculous 10-minute fight scene between Roddy Piper and so. That was fun.
Brody C asked this question a couple times too. This is a quick answer. What if they remade The Shining? They actually did. It sucked.
They did. It was a 1997 made for television, I believe, and it was more. It was the more faithful adaptation to the book.
Yeah.
And I believe Kubrick, not Kubrick, King, I believe, oversaw that because he wanted a more kind of. You can watch it online, I believe. You can watch it online.
You can.
For sure. Oh, Mikey D slips in a super chat. Oh, thank you, Mikey. Very generous. Appreciate that. I don't have a question. Just wanted to support the channel. To be honest, I came across your channel on accident, but ever since the first video, I've been hooked. Your content is amazing, brother. Keep doing you. Thank you very much, Mikey. Really appreciate that. And yeah, that's awesome. Whenever Tony and I hear shit like that, it means a lot, because it means that you guys like what we do. And again, if we don't get to your question, it's never personal. There's so many in there, and we like to be thorough. You know what I mean? But these Q&As are fun, and if we don't get to your question this time, there will always be a next time. Absolutely. So let's see here.
Movie questions to end on. I want to answer 2.
Yeah, let's end on a movie question. Well, we have one here. Cinemagic says, any thoughts on Clint Eastwood? Did you see his new movie, The Mule? I have not seen The Mule yet. I want to see that movie. Clint Eastwood is a fucking beast, man. He's a great filmmaker. And not every movie, but most movies he directs, he's had some hit and misses over the years, or over the last few years. But there was a stint there where he was knocking some fucking gems out. And I mean, if anybody's ever seen Unforgiven, the Academy Award winning, and I'm not a big Western fan, but that movie from, I think it was 92, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture, by the way, was fantastic. And then of course I love his 90s films too, like In the Line of Fire and yeah, exactly. And then of course Gran Torino from 2008 was really good. And he's $1 Million Baby.
Yeah.
He's
I got one question for you though. I know what you're asking yourself. Did he fire 6 shots? Wait. I already fucked it up.
It's all right. It's all right. Yeah. That's awesome.
Where I was going with that. Dirty Harry. Yeah.
Dirty Harry. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, punk.
Go ahead. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 5 shots or 6 shots? I got one question for you. Do you feel lucky, punk? Do you? And I got that in the ugly. Good and Bad and Ugly is a good film too.
It is.
His old
and then
are really good.
And then there's Spaceballs. What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie? It happens now. Everything that happens now is happening now. What happened to then? We passed then. When? Just now. We're at now. We'll go back to then. When? Now. I can't. Why? We missed it. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon. One of my favorite parts of Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Love that shit. Okay. One more question. Let's see here.
Thoughts on a Sleepy Hollow reimagining? I don't know. I like the one Burton did with Johnny Depp. I really do. That's actually one of my go-to movies in October that I enjoy watching every month during the Halloween season and whatnot. I really liked it. So I wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, you could if you wanted to. If you wanted to maybe go more in depth to the novel. But I thought what Burton did, was good. What about you? Did you like Burton's Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, I did. And I'm not a big Johnny Depp fan, which is a shame, really, because I think he's an incredibly talented actor. But unfortunately, he's
outside of the pirate shit. I like his shit outside of it.
Yeah. But I just mean he's one of those guys that always found himself doing all these eccentric, weird, and I don't. He's so typecast and so stereotyped as that guy that is always in these eccentric, weird, surreal, sensational films that I have a hard time taking him seriously. However, in Sleepy Hollow, I didn't mind him. I also didn't mind him that movie From Hell too.
From Hell, yeah, that's a good flick. Blow is a really good flick.
Yeah.
Donnie Brasco is a good flick.
Yeah, Donnie Brasco's all right. Yeah. When he's just being a regular dude.
Right. When he's just acting like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, that's a fucking great movie.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Leonardo DiCaprio.
I mean, when you take Johnny Depp out of the, like you said, the eccentric type characters like, Jack Sparrow and
Alice in Wonderland and Charlie the Chocolate Factory and I agree. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for Tony and I on this episode 13 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Nothing but Q&A. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Sincerely, you guys are awesome. I mean, obviously, without you guys tuning in, Tony and I would just be sitting here talking to ourselves. So no doubt that we appreciate it. And again, if we didn't get to your question, we'll probably definitely get to it next time. Next week is still on the table. I think we're okay for next week, right, Tony? Yes, Sunday night at 7. Okay. We don't know what the topic will be yet, but you will know as soon as, we like to sort of drop what the topic will be the weekend of the show, because we like to make sure, unless something changes and we want to change the topic, we kind of want to have some slack to do that. So Tony's link to his Instagram is in the description. Make sure you follow him there. All my links to my Facebook, my Twitter, my IMDb, it's all down there. Just click until your heart's content, and we'll be back next week, and I'll probably be back with a couple of videos at some point this week somewhere.
Good stuff. Have a good night.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Cheers.